Good evening. At 6 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the July 11th meeting of the Milton Area School District. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Hosterman. Here. Mr. Hunt. Here. Ms. Kessler.
Here.
Mr. Moser.
Here.
Dr. Strasser.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Mr. Harris is unable to make it this evening.
Dr. Weaver.
Here.
Mr. Frederick.
Here.
And Mrs. Rance.
Here. This evening, we are honored to have with us Ainsley Hoover. Ainsley is a first grade student at Bacher Elementary. Her parents are Vincent and Crystal Hoover, and her teacher is Mrs. DeLong. Would you please stand and join Ainsley in the pledge of the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands and for liberty and justice for all.
I sloppy almost fell. Good job. You showed up in your patriotic outfit. Thank you for being here this evening, Ainsley. Right. Next, we will have presentations and comments from visitors. So that would be items that are related to our board agenda. Thank you. All right, that they would both be actually at the end of the meeting. Do it now? All right, okay. All right, well, first, then we will invite Daniel Clark. Daniel, if you would please come to the microphone. Daniel's a resident of New Columbia, and the topic to be addressed is CRSE.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Dan Clark. I just wanted to talk a little bit about maybe wanted to make sure that certain things were under consideration to get to your discussion about this topic. And I don't know if adopting these standards is required by law or not. But if it is, so I just want to point out to me as a regular citizen, taxpayer, that it seems to me that presupposes that the district, this community, the Milton School District community, is biased, is insensitive, ignorant about cultural issues, is not open to some of the difficulties people have, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm trying to say is, it seems to me that this community is open, is rational, is intelligent, is generous, has the ability to arbitrate differences among students, to treat students not defined for their value, not to be worried about what class they belong to, what race they belong to, even though those are issues that are important to consider. But I just want to make sure that in the discussion, the basic philosophical positions that underlie these standards, for example, are exposed. Not that I'm saying that always, I'm certainly not saying that some of the concerns are not there, but that basic philosophical context should be exposed and then compared to what the community believes about human beings, social life, about the value of individuals with respect to just in and of themselves, being incomparable. Each kid is in and of him or herself a valuable person and should be taken as such without regard for any other things. That doesn't mean the culture and the race and the other, none of that is excluded, but the emphasis seems to me, that's a philosophical view. The emphasis should be on the individual kid who are absolute beings that you are all devoted to to helping flourish each one regardless of themselves. You know, and what I'm worried about is that, that's already in place here. I'm assuming that's already in place. We already have a rational, generous, intelligent, well-prepared staff in a community that does that. My question is, why would we adopt another framework for professional development and that has a philosophical view that is different than the one I just described? It's different, sometimes at odds. Why would we appropriate that? And rather than keep with what we have and simply develop and refine our rationality and our sensitivity and our empathy and our professionalism, it's already. Why would you adopt something that's different? But no matter what, seems to me the philosophical parts, the background, the assumption, they should be exposed so that people can see what's going on. It seems to me this isn't just out of the blue. There's another agenda. I'm not trying to be a conspiratorial person. It seems to me there's another view of social life, of the community, of what reality is of students that should be exposed. So, and then compared to the philosophy that I described, which is more unique, individual, absolute value of each person in and of themselves without regard to anything else except themselves. And that's the way we approach kids. I think that's what we do now. I just want to make sure that that's out there. And if this is adopted, I'm assuming that there'll have to be policies and procedures written with respect to how to implement this, right? I'm assuming that. And it seems to me there's, I would hope that there will be opportunity for discussion about dealing with some of the elements, for example, competency 9, that seem to be, like, for example, 9A, believe and acknowledge. It seems to me, believe and acknowledge. It seems to me there's my feel of believing that is a coercive sort of thing that you will believe and acknowledge. You will recognize, you will know, you will be sensitive this way.
Mr. Clark, about 15 more seconds,
Okay.
please. Okay.
But that coercive element also has to be dealt with, because that's not in line with the philosophical view that I think we all share right now about free and open discourse and not worried about whether someone's going to be telling on you if you commit what they think, for example, is a microaggression. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Next is Francis Spiller. Francis is from Milton, Pennsylvania. If you would come to the microphone, please. If you would like to speak to us this evening also on CRSE. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to come before you
Can someone
and talk about this very serious problem that we have, not only in Milton, but in the country. I read about it in the newspaper from your last meeting minutes that you were having a problem if you wanted to be involved with this as part of your staffing. And I was confused as to whether they just wanted us to talk to the staff and those that we hire to ensure that they're on the right track as far as treating all the students the same. Or was the problem that perhaps the board did not want the students to be aware of the different cultures? Now, over the years, true enough, we have not had a lot of problems, but over the years, we have gotten a different population, personality from all of our students. Just 2 different cultures we have to be concerned with anymore. And so much starts in the home. But we know in everything today how things have changed in the home, even as far as children and parents. And that also delegates on down to the schools. And the schools often are given less opportunity, maybe to make things equal. So I'm here to clarify what the school board is concerned about, why they wouldn't want their staff to be sure that they had the best ideas about culture, rather than just stumble through like we've been doing. We know that there's much that goes on after the school doors are closed and no one says anything about it, either the student or the parents, not just in Milton, but we read it in the newspaper, other places. So in order for us to strive to be on the right track and understanding of all of the students, because that's what it's going to take in order for us to get along. So I thank you for this opportunity. And if there's any questions that you would like to ask me, or things that I see, or perhaps could help you develop your staff for equality, I'd be glad to answer them anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Okay, we're going to move to approval of minutes. I'd like to make a motion for approval of minutes listed under 5A from the June 20th, 23 regular board meeting. So motion, is there a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. Are there any corrections or questions? All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under executive report this evening, I would like to contract, need to have it. This is going to do 6A and B. We're just going to start with 6A.
So 6A, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fink, but the RFP process has begun for solicitor services after our last meeting. I'll let Derek speak a little bit about that process.
Sure. I'll just quickly run down the process that we're planning to follow and give an update to everyone on where we stand today. So we've advertised in 2 publications for 3 weeks. Those advertisements have been running. The proposals are due by July 19th at 2 p.m., at which time they'll all be opened together in the order that they were received. After that, we have to evaluate and then potentially award a firm. So our 626 policy states that competitive proposals should be evaluated by the superintendent, business administrator / board secretary, and or district office administrators responsible for the funding. So that's going to be part of the process, is going through and reviewing those things that are submitted and looking for ones that don't meet our requirements. We do have, and I think everyone has received a copy of the RFP. If not, please let me know. But you can see what we requested. But there is the ability for us to evaluate through multiple criteria. I'll just run down that quickly so everyone has an understanding of that. So it would be the legal firm's technical understanding of the scope and services and proposed professional services as evidenced by the proposal that was submitted. We'll also be basing it on the background and experience of the legal firm in providing similar services, as well as specific background, education, qualifications, and relevant experience of key personnel. Location of the firm's office can play into it. Proposed fees and costs. Although the district is not bound to select a legal firm who proposes the lowest fees, the district reserves the right to negotiate fees with the selected legal firm. Information obtained by the district from firms' references or other clients, and what we deem is in the best interest of the district. So those are the criteria we're going to be looking at when evaluating and awarding. They're not in any specific order, but it's going to be, a full review. And then we do have the right to, follow up and interview any potential firms that we'd be looking at. And then the goal would be to present that for the August 8th meeting, I believe is what we're hoping for board approval and selection of the firm that'll represent the district. Other than that, at this point, I haven't received any packages yet, but it is a pretty substantial package, so I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't come in until later. So I'm just keeping an eye out for that. I'm the point of contact for any questions that come up for the RFP process. And so far, I've not heard any additional follow-up from anybody. So, but I will say that there's a very detailed RFP. So I think that there's probably most things are able to be answered just by looking at that. Any other questions on that? That's kind of just the general outline. We'll have
One thing I'll add, as Mr. Fink said, it's been published based on policy in the two newspapers, but it's also directly on our website on the main, literally, if you go to the
two places, the news on the homepage of the site, and then also under our bids and solicitation tab. So it's found in a few spots. Any other questions? Sure, the next time that we meet, we'll have a lot more, to discuss and look over. But if you have any questions in the meantime or anything that comes up after the meeting, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. All right, unless anyone has any objections, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the approval of the items listed in 6B, that is 1 and 2.
6B1, thank you, Dr. Strasser. There will be one adjustment, second to last paragraph. Dr. Keegan's name was included. This is an annual thing. It will just be adjusted to my name.
Anything else? Okay, that was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we have roll call, please?
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
Thank you.
The item 6C. Updated contract between Fishing Creek and the Milton Area School District. That's something you can speak to us about.
Yeah, I can do, give me 1 second. I made some highlights just on the changes because, so I mentioned last meeting that again, this isn't a renewal of a contract. It's not extending the term of the contract. It's just updating a few of the parts of it. We did have solicitor input on this. Thank you, Attorney Beer, for sending that over, which we did include throughout the contract. But the one item that was previously attached to this contract was additional $20,000 the district would pay for office support and additional help with routing and other kind of secretarial and I'm trying to think of like office support. Since we brought Darren on, he has assumed all of those responsibilities. And so we completely removed that from this contract. So that's $20,000 that is done and we're no longer doing that. And that was an agreement with both sides. So I think we're happy. And I mean, Fred Bennett is here too. He's the owner of Fishing Creek. So I think that's something that we're both happy about. It lets us control what we're doing, brings it back in-house, and it saves us some money and it takes some of the responsibility off of them. It's kind of a win-win. The other thing we removed is when the previous interim business manager was here, we had a shared savings program where if we were able to find savings by reducing van usage, we would share that with the contractor. We remove that. So all savings will actually go towards the district because it's beneficial for both sides anyway to reduce the costs. And so that just took out one kind of area of additional work and confusion from the contract. Other aspects that we added was just a little more clear language, updating that the contractor must comply with all respects to the Omnibus Transport, Employee Testing Act of 1991. Some things we have in our manual, like our transportation manual, but weren't actually in the contract. One of those things that we added in was making it a requirement that all drivers walk through the bus after every single route to look for any children that are still in the vehicle and any bags, things like that. That was policy. It wasn't in the actual contract. So now we've added that in there. We also made it very clear that there'll be no use of tobacco products, controlled substances, alcohol, eating, drink, like no stuff in our buses and vans, essentially. And that's for the drivers specifically we're talking about. Other areas that we updated, talked about that the district may, at its discretion, adjust all matters arising out of this contract, not specifically provided therein. A big thing that's really beneficial for both of us is we used to pay in 10 monthly payments. We've expanded it out to 11. It gives the contractor more cash flow through the summer, helps us because it lowers our cash output that we have monthly. So to me, I had no problem doing that. It just spreads it out over one extra month. We cleared up extracurricular transportation. We really just cleaned that up. We have flat rates for transportation between our buildings that we've agreed upon. We've straightened out the hours that are the hourly rate and the per mile rate. There was confusion from the previous contract to this one. So all of that is now where it should be, where it should have been for a while. And it's really clear language that's in there. Above and beyond that, the only other thing we added that stands out to me, other than really small minor changes, is that any provision of this agreement may be modified, changed, or waived only by written mutual consent of the parties. In the case of one or more of the provisions contained in the agreement, for any reason should be held invalid, illegal, or enforceable. The invalidity, illegality, or unenforceability shall not affect any other provisions of the agreement. That's something we didn't have in there, but was recommended to put in. But other than that, I'll just take this moment to say that first year bringing on a new contractor, we got kind of blindsided at the end of the previous school year. I mean, it was May when we found out that our contractor who had worked with us for a long time weren't going to do that anymore. So last summer and the beginning of last school year, I think was a big learning curve, especially with a brand new transportation coordinator in the district. I have seen positive changes throughout the year. I really appreciate the communication we have with Fishing Creek. Their office management is fantastic. I think we're only getting better. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but right over the bridge heading into West Milton, they have their bus depot there. So we have buses and vans right there in Milton, which is huge because in the event that for some reason a kid doesn't get picked up or something has to be done, they are in a van and out to get that student right away. We have brand new radios throughout all of the buses and the district. So we get full, clear digital coverage of the entire district, which we did not have for the majority of last year. So all in all, I appreciate the time to kind of just say that things are going really well. I'm really happy, great communication. And I think that it's only going to improve as we move forward. So I'd like to thank Fred. Fred, I don't know if you guys want any questions for Fred while he's here, but other than that, that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at with the update to the contract. Good. You're looking at me.
And I think to the point of what we're getting at here is what we're dealing with here is separate from, we will be here August 1st.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to come back to that in my report later. August 1st, discussing what transportation will look like going into next year. I think we feel even more confident. We're way ahead of where we normally have been in years past, from my understanding. We're going to be having, Fred will be with us probably very often over the next few months, simply because we're going to be looking at this school year and begin the projections out if we look at a K-5 realignment, what that looks
Yeah,
like.
and that's
So
not.
Darren will be here. Mr. Tall will be here on August 1st, full presentation for what we are doing currently when we look at times and all of those natures. But this is separate.
Yeah, and that's not to be taken lightly either. That was a change that happened late at the end of the previous school year as well. So I'm pretty happy with how things went last year. But yeah, you're correct. That routing, things like that has nothing to do with this contract. This is really just an update to get the terms sorted the way we want it. But yep, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have two quick, Derek.
Oh.
I promise they're not bad.
Sure.
So all routing is going to be handled in-house by.
Yes.
Darren.
Yeah, all of it.
So we're going to handle all of that.
Yes, 100%.
And then also for, when you mentioned extracurricular activities and being a flat rate,
Mhm.
does that apply to field trips as well?
So that the flat rate is just building to building, but it would apply to, so like if we're transporting kids from Bacher or White Deer to the high school, it's going to be a flat rate, and that would count for extracurriculars, field trips, anything like that. But any extracurricular field trips, things like that, are going to have the same rates applied that we would see. Like it's going to be equal across the board. So it'll be very easy. Darren and Fishing Creek can quickly produce quotes. We'll be able to normalize and have regular, like if we know we always go to place each year, wherever, Knoebels each year, we will know what that cost is right from the beginning. There won't be any surprises, concerns, stuff like that. So this will really help with budgeting and planning for that.
Right, so the PTSAs have an idea of field trips and stuff, and they get you that
Yes,
information.
get that to
right?
Darren. Yeah, get that to Darren. He will get you a quote and it'll be set. There won't be any
I see.
confusion. Yes, no.
All right, great,
If there is a surprise, please let me know.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I would like to make a motion. We accept the updated contract between Fishing Creek Transportation and the Milton Area School District. So motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. There's Alvin.
Where are we going? with?
Weaver, Dr. Weaver.
All right, thank you.
Could we have roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, next we will have the under 6D, the CRSE program framework guideline discussion.
So, as we heard from some of our community, we'll open the discussion to the board. This was brought up. I think what the board asked for was the information to be sent out. Dr. Kirkpatrick very, very quickly, almost immediately provided you the information on the guidelines and including the introduction relating to chapter 49. So I'll open it to the board for discussion, questions, and where we want to take it from here.
Well, I think that we should jump in with Shikellamy and Jersey Shore and go against the government with this. Just because I think this is an outreach by the government. And I don't think it's our best interest to move forward with this in the school district.
Where is it with the state with commending us to have it? Where does it sit right now? Can you answer that?
The
Will you speak?
guidelines
And I
were
could
put
find-
out, it was to be part of the comprehensive planning process and built into the professional development module of the comprehensive plan.
So currently, there is nothing that is in our plans for the 23-24 school year. We talked about that, but ultimately, as we continue the comprehensive planning, we are not sure yet where the state really sits on it. There has been discussion, I see Carl's here, there has been discussion on where the state is at, but they have not, nothing formally has moved from the state recently that we have seen, so.
Thing recent. Also to be part of the induction plan as well. So for all new teachers coming in, I believe the deadline for that was 2025. Again, as Dr. Beckhart mentioned, and I reiterated last time, it is not part of our professional development plan for the 23-24 school year.
Where does it stand out in the Pennsylvania world?
Well, when I was at Western Pennsylvania School Leaders Conference, I was critical of the CRSE. Believe the former superintendent, 2 superintendents ago, Brian Gasper from PDE was there. And he indicated that they were taking it and retooling it. I did send to Dr. Beckhart a communication from a curriculum director, I believe out at IU 6, who communicated with their respective schools in that geographical area that PDE was putting brakes and a pause on it. And as you know, there was a number of schools that in the western part of PA that took them to task, and that litigation is currently pending in Commonwealth Court. And that would be Mars and a few other schools that challenged it. I'm aware that other schools have, submitted resolutions and things, and that's well within your province to do that. That's based on each school district, whether they want to take that initiative. I would say if you're worried about cost, I wouldn't jump on the bandwagon and try to file another lawsuit that's already going to parallel what Mars and the other Western school districts did, because it's just going to get shelved or uptailed in there. But once again, the resolution is up to you. And I said it before, I'm not overly opposed to it at all, since I think there's a lot of issues in there that school districts have to balance. And this is not like you're fast tracking to any professional development activities this year. It appears that there's been a huge pump of the brakes for the time being. There's so many more important issues out there at this point. One of which is trying to get the cyber schools under control, who are making school districts bleed out left and right every which way. And I know I've sat in presentations where their graduation rates and success rates are not even breaking the high 50s. And public schools, even the ones that are in the worst shape at all, are in the 70s. So I'm just, somebody needs to get a hold of it. And we're hoping that new legislation gets its way in there and they're held more accountable.
I'm gonna add that to the superintendent's report then as well. Where do you want to?
What other comments or other questions does the board have? Do you want a motion to not include it? Our training.
My opinion is, given that we have no plans to include it in the training as of today, there's already litigation working its way through the system, I would recommend a wait and see approach.
I agree.
Eric?
I really don't care. I'll be honest with you.
Wait and see approach. Again, it's not in the plan currently. And we have no idea where it's truly going to go.
So I think I don't have an issue with the framework. I think this board has already adopted a policy regarding educational equity. I think we already try to do some of the things that are included. It's policy 832. I invite all board members to read it. It was adopted May 18th, 2021. It has to do with what we should be doing as a district to ensure educational equity with everybody. And I think this framework just goes to back that up, because there's a lot of school districts that don't have that policy adopted. We are one that does, and I'm proud of that.
Dr. Strasser?
So my question would be the Jersey Shore and Shikellamy. Is there a time frame on why they this so quickly? Why they move so fast on this? Are we under a time crunch for any of this?
I think their initial reasoning is just because it's starting this school year. So they're moving ahead, stating they're not including that, but that's the only reason I can assume that they've done that.
And we don't have to do that if we're not including it.
I think the other question you have to ask is what does the resolution provide in that? I think the big, I agree with Attorney Beard. The bigger question is, where does the litigation go and where does that stop it? And if that's already out there, well, I think the wait and see approach allows you to see where that goes. Again, I think very quickly what I would comment is I appreciate the two community members' comments and hearing them say, they believe that our community embraces equity and working together and doing all that. I think our teachers do a great job of welcoming each child individually. So I'm proud of that. I agree. I think Brett makes a great point there. So I think there's a fine line to be cautious on certain things that are asked of our children, but I've seen great things by our staff understanding how to meet each student's needs. I don't feel a time crunch right now. I don't think our team does at this point because of our plan. But I also want to keep a close eye on where things go.
Yeah, I mean, if there's not a time crunch, I'm for wait and see, as long as there's nothing we have to meet a certain time.
I think if there was concretely something the people were seeing that we were doing, we were providing something that they were concerned about the content of that. And again, we haven't seen the content the state is putting out on what this looks like.
I mean, in all reality, the state imposes these things upon you and says you need to do it by. This isn't like trauma-informed decision-making and training the boards have to go through as part and parcel of becoming school board members. They just throw this thing out. And I know PDE won't appreciate it, but is somebody really going to run around and say, gee, you didn't include that in your professional development? And then what's the penalty? I mean, there isn't anything in there that says you're going to lose your subsidy. I think the world would come to an end if they forced that on you. I think they've put out a lot of stuff over the years that they regret, and maybe this is one of them, and maybe they just want to take a step back and rethink what they did. And there's so many other hot button issues to push this out, because a lot of schools are already traveling, like Brett has already indicated, they're already focusing on these issues.
Mhm.
Josh, did you want to add anything to your? I believe the consensus of the board is to wait and see. My question would be if next week you would get a mandate to incorporate this into the training before school starts. Where does the school board stand in that decision?
Sure. I think if anything comes down, that's a mandate from the state that we become aware of, we'll bring it directly to you. It's an important topic. It's being discussed across the state. So I'm not assuming that's going to happen, but we'll keep a close eye on that.
Okay. All right, we'll move to Finance Committee, Mr. Frederick and Mr. Moser.
Let's see. Present this in the form of a motion of a block vote for item 7A and 7B. Just some standard operating procedures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? We have roll call, please.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
Oh, and Dr. Weaver.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're gonna vote. All right, anything else under finance?
That's it this evening. Thank you.
All right, facilities, Mr. Hosterman and Mrs. Kessler.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for approval item under facilities items 8A.
Second.
Motion and a second. Was there a second?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Any questions on the decommission list? Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
So item 8B, a discussion about the Walker renovations. We had a meeting there, 2 weeks ago? Thursday morning for facilities meeting with the Site Logic folks, district representation.
Yeah,
How many am I?
I know, I'm sorry.
Let's see.
You can keep adding them
It's way.
down. Send them out if the people. So there's enough for this, I know it's small, but I want to make sure it was on one page. Leadership team, there's a few copies going around if you want to see this. Here, it's not necessarily, yes, the specifics matter. They matter to the timeline, but here's what is going on. As Brett said, the team is coming together. We have been meeting bi-weekly with Site Logic. End of the month has been our meeting with our representatives from the school board. Here's the reality. Anytime you're doing a project, we all know that it's not all roses. And we are at a point now where school opens in a month and a half. We need a pod, accessible, usable. They are moving. There is great things happening. We felt it very important that beyond just a framework, which is a 5-week look ahead that they provide Jeff and I each week, we wanted details. Tell us exactly when. I think most important to Mr. Huffman, you'll see there is far right, August 7th, being the cleaning date and the ability to, I guess, the permits and all that to make sure we have accessibility to a pod. August 8th, we have assured you, you will be at Bacher. I have said this to Site Logic, that we are handing you this under the umbrella that they will keep to their word. They know I'm going to say that out loud, that we will be ready August 8th. Teachers that are going to be in APOD, yes, it's not a lot of time, but it's where we need to be. We're working through some things. But this is a by activity, when it's expected to be done, not just a broad look at it. I'll pause there. Jeff, I'll let you speak to anything else.
So things are moving aggressively now in the last week. Where we're at is in a good place. All the cabinets are in, countertops are 98% complete, and floors are almost 100% in the classrooms. And the lighting was getting installed in the hallways. Your sprinkler systems getting finished up by the end of the week. Your horns and strobes for your fire alarm panels and stuff like that is getting installed this week. Thermostats are installed. Aux sensors are installed in the rooms. It's really starting to look like a APOD. But there's still, a lot of work to get done, and we're scrambling with getting the elevator finished up where we can actually finish up room A101, I believe it is 01. And that's the only classroom that we haven't gotten a big handle on yet. Other than that, the bathrooms come along nicely. Tile's going to be put up starting, I think, next week on the walls. Pictures are here. It's going to look totally different when you guys see it again. It's coming. I have anxiety every morning when I wake up. I go there every day before I come to work and just make sure everything's on track. And it seems to be going quite well right now. I believe we have a meeting tomorrow.
So we have, I think they said this already. We've now requested, we've told Site Logic and them that we're meeting with them weekly.
Yes.
For the next
All mornings at 8 o'clock.
7 weeks.
Get our update.
Our next one for the board is July 20th. And then from there we can decide if we want.
Windows are getting put in now. They're really cool. So if you go there and look at black on this side and then getting inside, you can see out. It's that new reflective glass. Pretty cool. The windows look nice. Started that yesterday. Come along.
Mr. Slater, Mr. Decker, any comment from?
Really need to see it come together. Your concern, being the floor, everything that in the last 2 weeks, I think it's been a whirlwind of things getting done. It just takes time to build the frame. Talk about pipe work done, sprinkler systems, all that stuff. Hit it down, and you can actually see it.
I just want to publicly, I know we hate this, but acknowledge the work that at the time, keeping everybody in mind and also managing staff. Getting better building really fantastic. Seeing what he does every day, how hard it works. It should be a point of it's over and above.
Thank you. B-pod is all framed up. So that'll look like a B-pod here directly within the next week, 10 days, that'll be fully framed. They'll be starting to hang drywall up there. Bathrooms actually getting plumbed in now. Windows are getting put in that floor as well. So that's coming right along. Wow.
So August 1st, we'll be here to at the committee meeting to discuss progress, where we're at, final plans for August 8th. We'll also address on August 1st the canopy in detail, what that looks like. It's been discussed through the committee, but we will have specifics to discuss. Damian will be here. We are meeting with Play World tomorrow to discuss the playground option. So I'm very hopeful that August begins that full force effort on the exterior of the building, beyond the actual building. So that will be discussed. And I think we're also going to look to provide you on August 1st with kind of where we're at within that $18 million framework. A lot of good information coming hopefully that way, within on August 8th, being able to see APOD as close to complete as possible so teachers can begin to get classrooms ready. Thanks, Jeff.
Any questions from anybody?
It's a curiosity question with the tight turnaround between completion and occupancy. Is there any concerns with the normal odors that are associated with new construction, you know, carpet, paint, anything like that, working their way out before the students get in?
There's no odors now.
Okay.
We did redo the whole HVAC system. That's been emptied out. Valves all changed and it's brought back up. Actually running air in APOD. No. APOD's buttoned up. I'm running the air conditioning there. Yeah, you don't have these smells. There's no carpet.
Thank you.
I believe that's everything.
Thank you. Thank you for the schedule. Magnifying glass.
I know.
We didn't want to.
Sorry.
Okay, Athletics and Extracurricular Committee, Mr. Hosterman and Mr. Moser.
Sure. I'll make a motion for a block vote for items 9.A and 9.B.
Second.
The motion and a second. Are there any questions? So we have roll call, please.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rams.
Yes. While we're under athletics, Mr. Rance, would you want, or perhaps you could mention about the Hall of Fame, you know, that we coaches? See Rich Schneider's name here and it made me.
Found out, been looking around and seeing the district four, football coaches at an all-star game. The second week, third week in June. But I found out in one of the press releases, kind of moving around online, that, one of our former, head football coach who passed away, Max Schneider, was one of the, inaugural inductions into their hall. And so, that was pretty cool, to see. He was on for the halftime, he was staying over there and received that. So, one of my coaches was very young, a lot of people didn't know that she's a guy.
Yeah, it'd be nice to mention it at maybe one of our football games, the community to help honor him as well. So it was really nice news. It would have been nice to know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Maybe attend if we wanted, those of us that liked him. Anyway, okay, move on to Education and Technology, Mr. Hosterman and Mrs. Kessler.
Ms. Kessler, do you want to take this?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for a block vote on items 10A through 10B.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
and Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all for this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. 11, Personnel Committee, Mr. Frederick and Dr. Weaver.
Weaver, would you like to?
I'd like to make a motion for a block vote for items 11A up and including
Okay.
11L.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions in that long list?
I point a couple things out.
Sure.
Two things that or one thing I want to point out, that's combined, 11G, 11J, A5 math intervention, and then Mrs. Bond and Mrs. Scoggins. Our team, this has been discussed. I know the board even discussed the coaches' roles and what they are doing. We have had numerous conversations. We met again this week. Our intention is kind of took what used to be a remedial math position, adjusted that to a K-5 math intervention position. So in other words, when I started, the principals looked at me and said, we need math intervention. And I think, Dr. Patrick has said that, the team has said that. This is our attempt to really focus in, still keeping some of the coaching alive that we know is important, but also providing some math intervention at the K-5 on a structured, using the MTSS model, using that to guide our processes. So we're excited about that. I think it meets a need. It looks at adjusting those two coaching positions a little bit. Just wanted to point that out.
I do have one question about 11A. With Ms. Corbin leaving, does that make a hole in the middle school where she was going to be transferred, or the elementary where she was before she resigned?
Middle school. We are currently in the process of interviewing right now.
I thought I just wanted to make sure.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? We have roll call, please.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Rance.
Yes.
I want to make one more comment. Dr. Strasser, I think you saw 11K. That was based off our conversation about having our own full-time staff having the ability to be volunteers. That stemmed off of last month. I don't know if that addresses everything you were referencing then, but now we can talk further and look at that. But the goal there really is our own full-time staff who already have all the needs or all the forms in can volunteer anywhere. Otherwise, they would have had to been approved beyond that.
Does this include like anybody that we approve, substitute?
No, it does not.
full-
It is our full-time, and we put their food service simply because food service is the only ones that actually have part-time employees. So that we didn't go down that path of all our coaches and all of that for just volunteering. So we can discuss further that, but we figured full-time staff, part-time staff makes sense. Thank you.
I'd also like to point out that our new administrative secretary joined us for this evening.
too.
So Elaine, welcome. Congratulations.
Definitely welcome to Elaine. We're very excited. I think when we created that job description, there was a lot of different things in there. I'm very excited. I feel Elaine meets a lot of those criteria. That's very difficult when it's such a broad scope of things. So we're excited for her to join the team here in August, and she's enjoying being a new mom right now. That's most important.
A little assistant.
Can I ask one more question? I know we've already voted, so this is obviously coming late, but just the wording where we say who are hired during the year, is that really who are employed during the year? We're not speaking just those that were hired during that year.
I think it just meant for new hires,
New hires. Okay.
adding new hires to current employees.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
Anything else?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Legislative and Policy Committee, Mr. Hosterman and Dr. Strasser.
So I'd like to make a motion for a vote for 12A, policy 251, the final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? We have roll call, please.
Mr. Hosterman,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Frederick,
Yes.
Mrs. Rance.
Yes. Excuse me, yes. Anything else?
Nothing to see. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Amy.
Wait a minute. All right, CSIU 16 representative report, Dr. Weaver.
Need to see when the last update came out. Highlights. Again, there were ongoing discussions with Center for Schools and Communities, Dr. Celeste Morris, again, speaking and educating folks on what's going on in Harrisburg as well. the annual student art reception was held. And the migrant education program celebrated its 2023 migrant education graduation. That was actually back in May. And they are the highlights from the highlights. A little break for the summer.
Okay, thank you. Secretary's correspondence, Mr. Fink.
So this month we have donations and grants to cover. So doing the list of the donations first. From the Milton Rotary Club, we received $250 towards the Caring Fund. Gunzy's Hot Sausage donated $195 to the district. And Tara and Anthony Bucci's Silicon Valley Community Foundation donated $2,000 to the Panther Pantry. For our grants, we have our Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 amounts in there. Title 1 this year received $662,942. Title 2, $74,963. Title 3, $13,979, and Title 4, $52,328. And those amounts are where we thought they would end up. So it's close to budgeted. And that's everything that I have for this month.
Right. There a motion, or excuse, there a motion to accept the grants and donations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, superintendent's report, Dr. Bickhart.
Thank you. I think we'll start off with a great success story. And we had the CEP program that began this school year. And kudos to Ashley for her work on the summer lunch program. A lot of kids coming through. It's the first year that we have brought that in-house. Ton of work, but again, another important piece of the puzzle of us being the hub and allowing for all that to happen, our students getting fed while they're here for different programs. So very important. So thank you, Ashley, for your work on that. Carl had mentioned this. There is a House bill out there right now that was approved, focused on cyber reform rate. We'll see where the Senate takes it. In any way, if that gets passed, it will be very beneficial to the district, but we'll have to see where the next step in that is. But it does exist out there. Today, I think, just a little highlights. Today was a great day. Things going on, but we had a group of teachers, group of educators here working on CPR training. So important to just our community. And then beyond that, Dr. Kirkpatrick and the principals organized a meeting. They're looking at and working with the teachers on new ELA curriculum for elementary. I think you looked at 5 series today, 5 different options. More to go. It's a lot of work. I could see in all their eyes as that, lot to unpack here. But great leadership is evident there. And then ultimately glad to see we have representatives from almost every grade level, if not every grade level. So that was great to see that energy back. We talked about where we're going with transportation, where we're going. We're going to be discussing K-5 alignment, the secondary schedule. It may now seem so far away when we were opening that conversation with the community. The board is aware of this. We did have some correspondence from West Chillisquaque Township. I appreciate that. I think it's important for our community to send information to us, to address us with their questions and concerns. They're very concerned about transportation. It's why on August 1st, we are going to begin that conversation and not begin, but continue that conversation and continue to open that up. I have invited them to our next meeting to discuss their concerns, to be part of it. We will also be having additional meetings here in September and probably October. It might be at least 1, if not 2, prior to any board decision. Again, public, to allow people to come and ask questions. At that point, beyond just the board seeing it, we will make sure, or at the board meeting, we will make sure the community has information on transportation. It seems to be the big piece of the puzzle that people want information on. So that is coming, and we want to be transparent with that. This Thursday, very excited, our leadership team comes back together, focusing in on our goals. I think I've heard it from the board and I've heard it from the team. Moving past COVID, moving past that stage, rec focus on academic achievement. What does that look like? What are we going to do as a leadership team? Everyone, all of us, to focus in on how we create classrooms where kids are engaged and achieving. So that's going to be a direct focus. I look forward to coming back to you with some information on that. And I'm going to end where Seth was. Truly, what Jeff has been doing the past few weeks is extremely important. I remember early on discussing where the district stands on the project. This calendar and where we are and being prepared, Jeff is a major part of why that's where we are right now. He's there every day, passion for it, his care for the district and getting it done. He's stressing himself out too much, I think. But ultimately, just it's been really neat, difficult but neat to see his absolute passion to make sure this project gets done right and gets done in time. So, it takes a village, it takes a team. We've talked, it's not always pretty. There's a lot of tough conversations right now about this better get done, and Jeff is leading that from our standpoint. So I want to make sure, as Seth said publicly, a lot of great work being done there. And I'll end on that.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion to accept superintendent's report. Motion and a second. All in favor signify aye.
Okay.
Any board comments this evening? Board members have comments or questions?
I did have a leading thought this evening as we were talking about Bacher. So it's going to be a newly renovated building. Has anyone else given any thought to potentially changing the name?
Sorry, the
Given-
waiver projects too.
We've given thought to putting the name on the building. We actually spent a lot of time this morning on that. Where does that go? Our attention was James F. Bogger Elementary School, so that would be important to know. Really important.
Those letters are ordered.
Just a thought that I had while we were talking.
Who else
about
would
it.
you make out those letters?
Eric's house.
Yeah, right. It's my house.
I think paying homage to Dr. Bacher is pretty amazing myself.
Just a thought.
You didn't know him, I guess. You're all too young.
Table that.
All right. We'll table that. So the letters are needing to be ordered for the building. Any comments from visitors this evening other than, yeah.
We just had that CRSE discussion, and in the discussion, we're saying that there's no time frame for this to be implemented. Right on the very first page. Chapter 49 requires instruction in CRSE to be integrated in education or preparation, induction, and continuing professional development programs as follows. Continuing professional development programs must integrate the CRSE competencies no later than the 23-24 school year. Educator preparation and induction program must integrate CRSE competencies no later than the 24-25 school year. So yes, there is a date when this is supposed to be effective. Now, I will agree with Mr. Beard. It does not state that there will be any penalties if you do not. But there is dates on here saying that it is to be included by. I just wanted to make that public.
Anything else? All right, we're gonna ask to go to, for a vote, a motion to go into executive personnel. Yeah, geez. All right.
Seconds.
Thank you.
You're coming.
We will not be coming back, no further business this evening. But thank you all for being here.